So I was asked to present on basically a topic that is of interest to us all. What is the importance of indigenizing cybersecurity and cybersecurity protocols for the country? So this is a topic that has been at the back of the mind of all the cybersecurity chiefs that we have had, either at the national level or the state levels. So coming to the point number one, why must we have a national security that is indigenous? The most obvious one, I'll be talking extempo, I'm afraid. I'll not be presenting any slides, and this will not be taking long as well. There's nothing much to talk about other than the most important points, which I will cover in a jiffy, and I welcome any questions or mails if you have any. So we'd like protection against external threats. This goes without saying where the external threats are originating from. Some of them from expected sources, some of them from unexpected sources. From the ongoing conflicts around the world, what is the role that is being played by cyber attacks or cyber terrorism or through cyber weapons. This is not something new to us. We're seeing this in Ukraine, we're seeing this in Israel or the Middle East, and in other places where war is not being waged through hot means, but through these kind of things. Then the critical infrastructure protection. The security of critical infrastructure such as power grids, communication networks, and financial systems is essential for any nation for maintaining national security, and especially for India. And in case we have elements from outside, let's say from a particular company which is belonging to a neighboring nation in these important as plugins in these important infrastructures, then either they might be compromised in terms of cyber surveillance, or there might be a chance that these people might be collecting information. This is nothing new to India as such. We've heard about the experience of a particular telecom company, Huawei, in the US. So these people have been suspected of doing these things, and there have been actions taken against them. India is no stranger to it, no exception to it. So in the interest of national security, indigenization is important. Secondly, we should look at our economic stability. Indigenous cybersecurity protects businesses. It may be that some of our cybersecurity protocols may be primitive or maybe a little backward, but doesn't matter. Once we start adopting them, being a country that adapts very quickly, India can go to the next level, to the state of art in terms of guarding our own cybersecurity or critical interests critical to cybersecurity. This is essential for economic continuity and safeguarding the interests. And one more thing that is in the economic field, which is important for indigenization of cybersecurity, is protection of intellectual property. Anything that we develop in this field, India has got such a huge pool of talented manpower in IT that can be easily extended, that can be easily progressed to increase or evolve to include cybersecurity personnel, trained personnel as well. Today, if there is a gap in employment in any sector of computers or IT or ICT, it is cybersecurity. And developing personnel in that kind of a skill is definitely an advantage to India from its own domestic standpoint, and also from a standpoint of populating the industries outside. We all have talked about technological sovereignty, which is basically a self-reliance in cyber capabilities, which I talked a little bit about. Then the tailored solutions. All security problems are not alike. The security solutions that we will be needing for India may not necessarily be convergent with what is being used in the West. Maybe we have typical formulations. Maybe we have typical needs. Those things will develop only when we start developing cybersecurity protocols, cybersecurity structures, and the mechanisms from inside out. Then we come to know what we need for our country. That will prevent, getting wasteful, getting structures that are wasteful to us, that are not really useful, but we are paying for them. This is very, very well known to most of us. Then we have cultural preservation, which is the protection of cultural heritage. Indigenous cybersecurity can help protect digital representations of cultural heritages. There are traditional knowledges, historical records from cyber threats. These things have been happening in the actual or the conventional sense, in the sense we have seen smuggling of antiques and stuff. There is an equivalent of that in our cyber world as well, which needs to be protected. somewhat similar to intellectual property, but somewhat different as well. Then we have respect for local norms and values, which is not different from the tailored norms or solutions that I talked to you about. This will also be generating employment inside the country in a very important and crucial area. Now, we may be seeing in areas which are affected by conflict that indigenous solutions are the ones which people come to rely upon. A particular country in the conflict which is happening in the Northern Hemisphere, it ran out of weapons which were obtained from the US. Finally, it had to go for these FPV drones, which were manufactured from basically toy drones and then customized and then used very effectively. Ultimately, the lesson that comes to us is we must develop our own things. We cannot have, solutions perpetually being imported from abroad, especially in this very critical area. Then we are looking at resilience. In case something happens to the cyber security structure or to the critical infrastructure, we should be immediately able to stand back on our feet. This is not possible if we don't have indigenous solutions. If solutions are not local or homegrown, they are not going to help out. We'll still have to wait for an outsider to rescue us. That shouldn't happen. And then the trust that is built up amongst the citizens, the assurance that it builds up, this kind of activities build up amongst the citizens are phenomenal. And the people who will be using these kind of cybersecurity solutions will be assured that their data and their communications are being protected by locally developed and controlled systems. They don't really have to go in for any outside influence or outside interference to get them back on their feet. Then the policy and governance structures which are now coming up lately, we all are aware of that. I'll not be spelling them out. So alignment or convergence with national policies, data sovereignty policies, which are now coming out, especially in light of the data privacy regime, which is being thought of. They're also important from a standpoint of national security and critical infrastructure protection. So even here, indigenizing cybersecurity solutions is very important. As I have told you, job creation and development, already we have discussed this. It's really a field where employment opportunities are tremendous, where India can dominate. By exporting its homegrown solutions, maybe we will emerge as world leaders. We're already leaders in IT services. This is an important component of IT service, which we can add to our repertoire. Skill development, so many computer scientists are emerging, information technology technicians and technologists are emerging. So why don't we add this to the quiver of arrows that we already have? Why don't we have very, very good quality cybersecurity scientists, cybersecurity technicians, people who can jet abroad or sitting from here who can do stuff which will help the industry abroad as well. So this is something that we need to think about. So then when we talk about data sovereignty, we also talk about localization of data or data residency. So this is, though not technically a part of indigenization of cybersecurity, it certainly is an important adjunct that we must look at. Localization of data or data residency or storing or processing of data within geographic boundaries of India is one of the most important aspects of cybersecurity and most critical aspects. It has several advantages. It enhances security. It reduces exposure to foreign surveillance, and localized cybersecurity measures which we have developed for the country can be easily tailored for these kind of localized data structures, data storage structures or data warehouses. Obviously, we have regulatory compliance which will be adhering to the local laws, ease of law enforcement access for our own agencies. But then we must be careful that we must adhere to the norms of data transport or privacy norms which are there, which are defined in GDPR or in Privacy Shield or Safe Harbor of the US. So these must be kept in mind when we are looking at localized data and application of local laws to them. Economic benefits, growth of local data centers, encouraging data localization has driven investment in local data center infrastructure already, and we can exponentially add to it, and then we can create jobs and boost the economy at the same time. So, and these kind of the people who kind of get employed or who build data structures need not be big people. It can easily be fitting it within the MSME structures that has been defined by the government. Even people of modest financial means can go in for that. So this is going to give a big boost to the economic development, and we have got most important thing is improved performance and reliability, reduced latency for one. We don't have to rely on foreign networks for transmitting data. We can get them very quickly. Increased data availability. Local data centers can provide more reliable and resilient services, reducing the data loss risks or service outages due to geopolitical tensions or international disputes. And of course, I have talked already to you about data sovereignty. The data that belongs to India remains in India. We have national control over it, protection against external influence. Then again, as we had discussed during indigenization of cybersecurity structures, data localization also includes improving trust and confidence, building the public trust and then the business confidence. National security, again, protection of strategic data becomes easier because it is within the geographical boundaries. And then enhanced monitoring and control, not in the negative sense, in the positive sense, so that the data movement is controlled and no sensitive data goes out by mistake. And then the last thing that I'd like to talk to you about is a topic that is generally becoming a little controversial, that is the increasing use of foreign-owned clouds or cloud environments, MNC-owned cloud environments. Strictly speaking, on a personal level, I have nothing against it. It's a good idea to use clouds which are already developed, but then we must look at locally grown or homegrown solutions. This must be in the uppermost in the minds of all security professionals, especially those in the government and those in the prominent corporate structures as well. So we must think about potential for foreign surveillance. Whatever anyone says, access by foreign governments is a perpetual danger that we must face if we use these clouds. Then the data that might be stored in these kind of clouds, which may not be within the geographical boundaries, they may be subject to data requests and subpoenas from foreign governments, whatever effect or impact they may have on national security. And then we don't have a lack of we have a lack of direct oversight over such data in some instances. There has been a lot of discussions on this. I'm sure my colleagues across the states and the center also must have thought about it. There are a lot of denials from these people that, look, we adhere to your norms, we don't adhere to foreign norms. But then that lingering doubt always exists. Then the geopolitical risks, if that area where the data is stored or the cloud is being hosted becomes sensitive, or it becomes a zone of a conflict, then what happens to the data? What happens to the clouds? What about the jurisdictional and legal issues where there are conflicting legal frameworks? Certain countries may have different legal frameworks which are not concomitant with ours, with India's legal requirements or compliance. What about that? The uncertainties caused in the wake of such conflicting legal frameworks can be debilitating. Then, as usual, then we have that dependency on foreign technology, the well-known dangers of vendor lock-in. So relying on foreign cloud provides or can provide dependencies that are difficult and costly to break. It is a vicious cycle. They will ask for certain technologies that you will have to subscribe. Because you are on their clouds, you can't immediately transfer your data out. So these things become difficult later on. And then later on, when you want to change from the cloud to another environment or another cloud of yours, it might be difficult to change all the remaining technologies. How to make a particular cloud storage vendor neutral is a challenge that we are yet to solve. We have supply chain vulnerabilities, too common to explain. All of us know what supply chain vulnerabilities can do to an industry, what has happened in certain countries in the neighborhood, and what is going to happen in conflict between two major powers is something that we have to watch out for in this regard. Then security and data privacy concerns, again suffering from differing security standards between countries. Then the third-party risks, in which foreign cloud providers often rely on a network of subcontractors and third-party services, brokers. This is going to increase the attack surface or the substratum quite a lot. We must think about that as well. There are significant disadvantages of using foreign clouds, the economic impact. When we use foreign-owned clouds or multinational-owned clouds, we are depriving our own people of building similar structures. So why don't we go in for it? Why don't we build our own cloud structures which can host data or with an international level of competency? I mean, India does have that kind of talent. Some people are already on the job. I'm not naming them, but they're there. We've been seeing them. Then having your own clouds and avoiding the ones which are owned by others gives you a kind of strategic autonomy. And again, as I told, there's a conflict happening in the Northern Hemisphere. You must understand the meaning of what is strategic autonomy. One of the countries there is totally reliant on foreign handouts. That must not happen, not in the cyber field at least. We should be totally self-sufficient. Then the incident response and recovery. What about if a major data breach occurs? Where are we going to settle it? Where are we going to plug the leak? It becomes difficult if it is outside, hosted outside, no matter what the clouds say, the cloud platforms say. Good if we have our own, where the clouds are located and hosted from a local territory. That's easier for us. Again, data localization here. Then the complex recovery processes of recovering clouds. Forensic recovery from clouds is a very, very difficult process for police officers and law enforcement and the courts, prosecution. These things become easy if the clouds are located, physically located, or they're hosted from within the geographical boundaries. To sum up, this foreign-owned data storage clouds pose national security threats or risks, at least, by exposing data to potential surveillance by outside agencies, jurisdictional legal complexities, increasing dependency on foreign technology, and complicating incident response. So these things are pretty much common. I have nothing more to add to it. All of us are aware of it. I'm just doing a rehash of things, and I'd love to have your feedback on that. All of us must have faced situations one time or the other in their career. So I'll be grateful for any questions if there are. I'll now be ending my extempo. Thank you.